See if this works. All right. So I think I'm recording. I have no idea what's going to happen to it or how it works, but holy cow.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you.
I obviously have a ton of questions.
Go ahead.
But I guess if you could just start and tell me like how this all came about,
I will.
what brought it up?
That'll help. Okay, so I started looking for my birth mother 28 years ago. I
So you had never met her?
no.
Okay.
And so I started looking for. I was adopted when I was 6 months old. I was born in Boston, adopted by a family that lived in Sharon, Massachusetts, and they told me. I think part of it is regular old verbiage that they tell people who are adopted. Oh, your mother loved you, blah blah blah. Anyway, it turns out they told me that my aunt, my birth mother's sister, looked into adopting me. She already had 2 kids.
Yep.
They thought about, wouldn't it be great if she could adopt me? And then they both decided it was too difficult emotionally. So I was given up for adoption. I was adopted at 6 months, raised by a great family. 3 seem to run everywhere I go because there's 3 in my family.
And that family was, what was their name?
McClellan is my name.
Oh, okay. That's the family that raised you.
That's the family that raised me.
Okay.
Tom and Marion McClellan. And the thing that just kills me is we moved to New Canaan when I was 5 years old. And I think your mother moved there about the same time.
So that would have been 1957, 58?
Yeah. She might have moved there actually a little bit later, but and I want you to continue with the story, but basically, like, I grew up in Wilton. Like my dad was a Stamford guy, and he met my mom. They got married. We lived in Stamford. They lived in Stamford from after they were married, 1968 up till 82, and then we moved to Wilton in 82, and that's where we lived. And then once I graduated high school, my dad got transferred and they moved out to California and wound up never coming back. But yeah, so we had been there up until 1988. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's so weird.
Yes. Okay, so you're adopted, you moved.
So I'm adopted, so I never looked for, I made one attempt 28 years ago to locate my birth mother, and I did get in touch with the adoption agency. They did give me a bunch of non-identifying information, meaning that they told me, that my mother was an executive. At the time, I think it's American Airlines.
Yep.
And
so were they not allowed to tell you who your mother was?
Correct. It was still all sealed stuff in those days. You could unseal the records if you had a compelling reason, and I didn't. I just had curiosity. The funny thing is, so I tried looking 28 years ago, and did come up with did contact them. They said you can it'll take about 6 months unless you have a medical reason, and then we can tell you right away, all the non-identifying stuff. And I said, I don't want to wait 6 months. I'm not going to bother.
Right.
So 2 years later, I end up with high blood pressure. I go, I've got a medical reason. Even though I only had to wait 6 months, I wanted to wait until I actually. So that's when I got the non-identifying information that she worked, that she was an executive, that my birth father was supposedly separated. There's obviously more to that story than they were told.
Yeah.
And that he had 2 daughters, and that he was not interested in being involved in my life.
So they told you that?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did they know? Nobody knew anything about your grandfather. Nobody on my mother's side of the family knew anything, knew his name. She's dead, her sister's dead, and those are the people who would have known. The cousins, the cousins were around. I've got older cousins that are basically Kathy and I'm sorry, I forgot your other aunt's name, who's older than me, who's died.
Mary.
Mary. They were basically the same age as those two kids. So they knew about me, but they knew nothing about my father. Okay, so I've got this non-identifying information, and then I've got some friends whose kids decided to find their birth parents and told me, oh, well, Washington has opened the records. You can get your original birth certificate now. And I said, wow, if Washington's done that, state of Massachusetts has definitely done that. So I got my birth certificate, and that's when I went on the quest to find my birth mother.
What year was this?
That's 5 years ago. I'm
Okay.
asking my husband. 5 or 6 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Because I visited a cousin in 2016. Yeah, 2016, I met one of my cousins on that side. But my birth mother's name is Doris Needham.
Right.
The name Needham, can you imagine how many Needhams are in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I would imagine. Isn't there a town, Needham?
Yes. So that took about 8 months, I think, to sort through all that. And what happened was I had an address where she lived when I was born. And I found some woman named Angie Needham who lived on 621 Beacon Street. My mother lived on 1621 Beacon Street. And somebody named Doris lived with her. And I said, that's just a little too weird.
Yeah.
So I was able to, fortunately, it was on Ancestry.com, and I was able to locate the actual physical directory. And there it was, Angie Needham and Doris Needham's living with Angie Needham. So there's thousands and thousands of Doris Needhams. I'm exaggerating. There is only one Angie Needham. Right. And that was my grandmother. So that it became very easy to find that side of the family once I had the Needham name.
Okay.
And I located my cousins. I tried the cousins first because, especially since I knew that they were alive when I was born, they probably knew about me. Mm-hmm. And I also thought that was less intrusive. So I got in touch with my cousins. There's one cousin that I communicate pretty regularly now. Two other cousins that I'm in touch with. And they said, I said, what do you think? Should I contact my half siblings? And my cousin Buddy said, they know about you. And he contacted my half sister Robin. And so she was expecting to hear from me. So I contacted them. I'm in contact with Robin, my half sister. I'm in contact with my half brother Dewey. My half brother Denise, my half sister Denise wants nothing to do with me. That's okay.
It's interesting.
I mean, it's not. I think she might be a little different anyway. So this may just be part of her emotional makeup.
Sure.
It runs in the family. So let's see, what else on that side of the family? But those poor kids, they didn't find out about me. My cousins never told them about me. So
meaning your half siblings.
My half siblings, yeah. So they found out, the two sisters found out when they were going through my mother's stuff. And they came across some pictures of baby stuff. And it's like, oh my God, there was somebody before us. Right. So that's how they found out. And then when I contacted my cousin, they'd never told their brother. So he was really upset that this dark family secret had been kept with them. Right. So he and I are in contact too. Okay, so no information about who your father is. And it's not, I mean, who your grandfather is, and it's not something that I'm particularly interested in pushing them on, because I don't think this was easy for them, and I
They
don't want
were
to say,
dealing with their own shit. They weren't
yeah,
dealing with helping you.
yeah. And so, like we've got a decent relationship, but it's not like, hey, can you go and find some old stuff for me?
By the way, if you come across any love letters or anything.
So then I do 23andMe, a couple, time goes by, I say, I got to figure this out. I do 23andMe. And I did 23andMe and the Ancestry. That I didn't get a lot from 23andMe in terms of relatives. I got health information that turned out to be important for me, but I didn't get really any relatives. So I said, I'm going to try the Ancestry. So I tried Ancestry, and this Laura Lubin comes up as a first cousin. And I go, holy shit, that's a very close relationship. So I get in touch with her and I tell her the story, and she says, well, I don't know. You don't seem to be related to anybody else in my family, so I'm not sure. And then about 2 weeks later, a Patricia Stevens shows up. And this shows up as a very close relationship, more than Laura. So I get back in touch with Laura and I say, do you know Patricia Stevens? She goes, that's my mother. I said, okay, we're very closely related.
Wow.
So I said, we need to look at it. So anyway, that's when Patricia figured out, oh, this is Joe, and the whole idea about how tall he was, where he worked, the separation. So anyway, that's how I came to find you guys.
So hold on a second. I might have skipped a step or missed a step. How did Lauren Lubin come up?
She was a match for me in Ancestry. Okay. She was a blood match for me.
On 23andMe, you mean?
Ancestry too. Ancestry does it. Yeah.
Oh, they do?
So
okay, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah, so,
and that led you to Patricia. Okay, interesting. And you had a conversation with Patricia, right?
We were planning a trip to the East Coast.
Where is she? Is she still alive?
She is.
Where
and she lives, forgotten where she lives in, she's got a place near Boston that she spends a couple of months a year at, but mainly she's in Dennis.
And how old is she these days?
So she is just about your mother's age, I think. So that's 8 years older than I am. So she's 78.
77, 78, yeah.
77, 78.
Okay. You know what? Because her name came up and I don't remember meeting her. I was told I did, and I can't remember. But we were trying to figure out if she was still alive, and nobody really knew.
She is, and her sister Rosemary is still alive.
Okay.
But there was another person in the family, and another sister, and she is not alive. I think that was Anne. I think her name was Anne.
So, okay, so you make the connection that you and Patricia are related, and that connects to, how could, I guess my question to you is, how could it not have been Martin or the other brother? How was it Joe?
I think the story about the separation and the two kids.
Oh, the connection.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and
Okay.
they said that Joe was very personable and somewhat of a ladies' man.
That's really funny, because that is not at all how I know him. That is absolutely not.
Well, who thinks of their grandfather like that? Who thinks of their father like that?
And if you had seen, I mean, Joe was the exact same from my first memory of him in 1975 up until 2005 when he died. He was always, I don't want to say life hit him hard, but he was slow moving, very stoic, didn't talk a lot, had a very good personality and sense of humor, but didn't really exhibit a lot. My grandmother was the storyteller, the life of the party, the one who's always, gibbering, jabbering, and telling everybody everything. So to hear that is not surprising, but it's just not how I would remember him.
Yeah.
So that's really funny. So you find out about this, what, 2 years ago?
Yes. Right when your mother passed away.
Right.
And
how did you know that?
Because I got the names of my half siblings from Patricia. So of course I start researching everybody.
Okay.
And I was the one who told them, Laura and Patricia, Pat, about Kathy's passing.
Okay.
So
mom had been sick for years. My mom. So she had developed lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, back in 1988. And look, I could sit here and talk to you for 2 hours about her medical history. She's had cancer, she's had strokes, she's had brain tumors, she's had, a ton of stuff. And she fought valiantly for 30 plus years. It was time. She had just been through a ton. And so it was not surprising. Obviously it's devastating when one of your parents go. But it was, and I never want to say it was a blessing, but it had been a long journey for her. She had been sick for a really long time.
That's really too bad.
Yeah.
Patricia, before I told Pat about her passing, she said that she'd had poor health for most of her life.
She did. She got sick when I was a senior in high school, and so we were living in Connecticut, and they had my dad had been actually working out in California for about a year, kind of commuting back and forth. And so what they decided when I graduated high school that they were going to move out there. So they did, and it was probably best for my mother because they moved, half hour away from Stanford University, and that's where her doctors were, and that's where she got all her treatments. So from a medical standpoint, it was a great move for them.
What town did they live in?
I'm sorry?
What town did they live in?
They lived in a town called Alamo, which is like a suburb of Danville, California.
Danville. Okay, got it. I went to Berkeley.
Oh, okay.
I went to Berkeley for law school. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. I did summer school at Berkeley. Okay. So, you find out about mom's passing from Patricia, or you told Patricia?
No, I told her. I started looking up everybody.
Okay. And so what else have you found out?
Oh my God, Mary. What a tragedy that must have been.
It was. Yes.
And that she's got a son who lives in Dallas now. Is he doing all right?
Frederick is doing well. Yes. It was so. My dad and Fred were best friends growing up.
So they're from Greenwich also. I know.
My dad and Fred are from Stanford.
Stanford.
Yep. Fred was dating Mary for, a couple of months, and Fred said, "Hey, Mary's got this sister I want to set you up with on a blind date."
Oh my God.
So that's how they met. And, it was not coincidental that Mary and Fred moved out to California after my parents did. They were very close. My mom and Mary were very tight. And obviously my dad and Fred had a lifelong friendship. Fred was a phenomenal guy, just salt of the earth. And I think he just, he was a very good businessman, always took a lot of chances. would start businesses, started a Duchess franchise, he did all kinds of things, and everything he did 150%. He was all in all the time. And he went out to California and lived in Los Gatos and got into the real estate biz and did phenomenally well. But I don't know the particulars of what happened. But in some ways he got in over his head. And it was obviously tragic what happened. I don't think my mom personally ever really was able to accept it.
God, no.
My youngest sister, Krissa, she's out in Manhattan Beach. And she and my mom were very close. I mean, we all were, but Krissa and my mom were close, being the youngest and everything. So Krissa probably has a little bit more insight on how that specifically affected my mom. But yes, it was devastating. Frederick is a great kid. We are still in touch with him. Obviously, we're his only family pretty much right now. He is unbelievably smart.
Yeah, I noticed that. That I picked up on.
He's got an IQ through the roof. He graduated from Stanford. He works for a I don't know if it's a volunteer organization or what, but it's called Team Rubicon. And he's been with them for years and does stuff with them all over the country. And I think he just moved. I can never keep track of where he is. He's in, San Francisco. He's in Austin. He's, all over the place. So yeah. So you must know there's another sister.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yes.
Is anybody in touch with her?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I called her last week.
She knows?
Oh, she knows.
Did you tell her?
I did.
Because that was the other, after your mom died, and then I found out that Mary was dead, I was thinking, oh God, I didn't want to get in touch with anybody so close to your mom's death.
So,
go ahead.
Sorry. I love this stuff. Okay. I'll just say, I think this is the coolest thing ever. With that said, I'm a product of the 21st century to some degree. I tread lightly, not that I thought that this was a scam or identity theft or something, but I was like, who does this happen to? This happens to people on television. This doesn't happen to me. So, which is one reason why I wanted to talk to you. And not that any of this is really all that surprising in light of the stuff that you've mentioned or brought to light, but it was always and I said to Jennifer when I was talking to her, it was funny, I called her last week while I was driving in the car, and I was like, are you still drinking? She's like, yeah, sure. I was like, you better pour yourself a drink. And she's like, okay. I've got some Baileys here. And I was like, do you have anything stronger? And so I kind of took her through how, I got this email on Ancestry, and I went back and forth with this woman, and she says Joe is her father, and a lot of the stuff that she says checks out. And, it was funny, after you emailed me the second time when you said, mother worked for American Airlines, your grandfather worked in Boston, your grandmother was in a sanatorium, you said. And the night before, or maybe it was that night, no, it was the night before, that email came in. I got on one of these with my sisters and my dad. And my dad was like, Mary was in a sanatorium for a couple of years. And I hadn't heard that word in 30 years. I knew it, obviously. But to hear that, and then when you said it in your email, I was like, holy shit. This is for real. So anyway, this is a long-winded way of me saying, I was very candid with Jennifer. I was like, look, this woman knows a lot of things. I don't know how she knows them. And if you want me to, I can have a conversation with her and, tread lightly a little bit and see what she knows. And yeah, I mean, obviously not that you're not for real, but because you certainly are. But just understand, that's maybe why I pulled a pulled back a little bit or didn't say much because I just wanted to be able to have this face to face. And, you know, not that I didn't think you were credible, but to just see it with my own eyes for myself.
Yeah,
And-
it's totally different than the other side of my family where my cousins knew. You know, they knew.
Right.
And what the story. So when I finally showed up, it was like, oh, how are you?
It's
But you
unbelievable.
guys, like I said, nobody on that side of the family knew anything about your father. I mean, your grandfather. And, you know,
Well, and not that people can't keep secrets, but you know, and it's funny. I was out today. I was sitting in the barber chair and I was talking to the woman cutting my hair. And I was like, I told her the story because I'm telling anybody who will listen these days. I'm like, this is the greatest story ever. And I'm telling the story, and she goes on to tell me that her grandfather was one of 13, 7 boys and 6 girls. And all 7 boys had kids out of wedlock outside of their family. And we were sitting there talking like, was this a generational thing? Like, did people just do this? And maybe to some degree, like, you know, I know it was different times and maybe women knew about it and were less reluctant to leave because they didn't want to disrupt the family and they were homemakers. And I don't know, but you couldn't get away with this stuff now. Like, I mean, you know, information is everywhere.
Yeah.
So
of course, there's a lot more birth control now too, which makes a big difference on that.
that's true too. That's true too.
But
Okay, so sorry. So
I don't know if I bet your grandmother, I wouldn't be surprised if your grandmother never knew.
Oh, she absolutely did not.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family knows. My mother never knew. You know, and it's funny. Again, getting back to this conversation I had today, the woman, I said to her, I was telling her how excited I was that all this is happening to us. And I was like, you should tell your mom to go like research this. She's like, oh no, it's known. Nobody talks about it. And so like, and in a lot of respects, I think that's sad, you know, and yes, that part of me understands it, but like, I don't know. I'm just of the notion, like, I think this is cool as shit. Like, are there any more? You know, like.
Yeah, you know, who knows? Joe was by himself for 2 years. And none of us know how long, you know, was it a one-night stand? Did they have a relationship for some time?
Right.
No idea.
Yeah.
You know?
So, and so sorry, I'm going to rehash a lot of questions. You never met your mother, your birth mother.
Nope.
How long did you find out who she was had she died?
Let's see. She died the year before Joe did. He died in 2005, right?
I think so, yeah.
And she died in 2004.
Oh, okay.
And then I and the other thing for me is, see, my mother, the woman that I consider my mother, she died in 2011. And even though I was willing to get in contact with the adoption agency and find out what I could, I never felt comfortable looking for my birth family while my mother was alive. She kept saying, oh, no, you can do it. And I never believed her. You know, I just thought that would be too painful for her.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting is she used to say on my birthday that she hoped that my mother didn't remember me. Not that I was a horrible person, but that she'd gotten on with her life.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that shocks me about my birth mother is when I found out how old she was, I figured, oh, well, I'm the oldest she ever had. And then it turns out she went on and, you know, got married almost immediately after I was put up for adoption and had 3 kids. So I'm happy for her. But my cousins tell me that she was never the same after giving me up, that she was never the joyous person that she'd been before. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure it didn't affect your grandfather that way.
Was your mom married?
No.
She was.
No, she got married
After.
a couple of months after I was born.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So sorry. So you find out Joe is your father.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, what did you use to find out about like my mom and Mary and Jennifer?
the internet,
Yeah.
just Googled everything.
Okay.
And because I got, once Patricia gave me the name, so it was easy to figure that out.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
that's
Okay.
why after your mom died, I wasn't gonna get in the way. But I was also thinking about Jennifer, and I was thinking, oh my God, she's lost 2 sisters. Should I get in touch with her?
Right.
And then I decided, no, I need an entree. I need a cousin to make that. I need
So,
this is
and
tough shit.
yeah, no, absolutely. Look, and my questions are not prodding. They're just more for my curiosity because, if there's one thing I understand in even the week of talking about this with people is that everybody's got a different opinion. Everybody moves on their own timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to criticize someone like you for waiting until you're this point in your life to find your birth family. For whatever those reasons are, they're your own.
Yeah.
And I might do it differently, but that's not to say that it's right.
Yeah.
So so how did you find? So I guess my question is, you found out Joe was your father right after my mom died. So that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you obviously knew about my mom and Mary and that side.
I kind of kept track of you guys.
So I was going to say, it was 2 years ago. What took so long?
I really don't know. Well, some time obviously had to pass. And then I guess I was just ready,
Right.
Okay, let's.
For whatever it's worth, my mom would have eaten this shit up. She would have loved this. She absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, whether it was looking at her picture or reading about her. It was kind of like, I should have known this woman.
Yeah. She was a great lady. She really was.
We should have
She
known
really
each
was.
other.
Yeah, absolutely.
But back to Joe, I've seen lots of pictures of him and Mary.
Yeah.
And they look so happy, so well suited. I mean,
Oh, they were frickin' track. They were a perfect couple for each other. They really were.
He made the right choice.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of choice it was back then, but it's funny. I don't know what it was like living in the 40s and 50s and growing up and being a 22-year-old just out of college, professional, with your wife in the hospital for 2 years with tuberculosis. That's crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I guess my point is, I don't think any differently of him, just in light of all this.
I think it was kind of courageous for him to say, I'm not going to walk away from this mess of a life I've got right now with my wife in a sanitarium, go off and lead another life. In some ways, I think that would have been the easier choice.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made that it was admirable the way he did it. But look, it's all depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so man, this is crazy. So you got married and have 3 boys?
Yep, 3 boys.
And you are living in Seattle?
Well, we live in Kirkland, Washington. So if you've ever heard of Costco.
Yep, sure.
Headquarters of headquarters in Kirkland. So it is the Seattle area. And I moved to Seattle after I went to American University undergrad, and I moved to Seattle after undergraduate. Lived there for a couple of years, went to Berkeley Law, went back to Seattle. I thought I was going to stay in Berkeley, but it reminded me of the East Coast. San Francisco, but it reminded me of the East Coast too much. Right. So I went back to Seattle because Seattle wasn't Seattle then. There was no Microsoft, there was no Amazon. Right. It was just Seattle.
It was just a rainy town.
Yeah. And met my husband at the law firm that I worked at.
What kind of law do you practice?
None anymore, but I did employment discrimination defense work.
Okay.
class action stuff. My
Okay.
husband's an intellectual property lawyer, or at least
Okay.
he was. He's retired now too.
Okay.
So we're basically 6 months out of the year in the Seattle area, and then 6 months in the Tucson area, which
Okay.
is where we are right now.
Oh, okay.
Which is why I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt.
and I'm bundled up with like 4 layers on. Where is it? Tucson in the city or just outside?
It's Marana. It's northwest of Tucson.
Okay. Okay. I've been there a couple times, in my previous business life. So, not a bad spot.
Yeah. Let's see. My oldest son is Thomas. He's married to a doctor. He's a doctor.
What kind of doctor?
He's a pulmonary critical care doctor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So my sister Julie
is a doctor.
She is an ER doctor, an ER critical care specialist.
So is she in Denver?
She just moved there. Yes.
Okay. Who she worked for there? Do you know?
I want to say the UC Boulder Hospital, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Because my niece, on the other side, on my adopted side, my niece is an ER doctor in Denver.
Oh, get out of here.
They're going to meet each other some way sooner or later.
What's her name?
Jennifer Carrillo. Not Jennifer, sorry, that's my niece. Jody. Jodi and Carrillo, Carrillo. And once we become friends on Facebook, you'll see the picture of her getting her COVID vaccine just the other day.
That's really funny. Yeah. I haven't asked Julie if she got that yet, but I'm sure she's close.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, but my son's Thomas is in Manhattan.
Yep.
And so he had a lot of fun in March and April with the COVID.
I'm sure.
And his wife, Lena, works for Pfizer. She's a research doc working for Pfizer.
Man.
And then my middle child, Marshall, he's married.
That's the one you sent me the picture of?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a police officer in Redmond, Washington, and he has 2 kids, 2 years, and one's 2.5, and one's 10 months, I think, 9 months. One's 9 months. And then my youngest son, Kenny, is here and can hear me yelling. He just today graduated from college.
Good for him. Congratulations.
Yeah.
As much for you as for him.
He just finished up at the University of Arizona.
Oh, okay, great.
He will be moving to California right after Christmas.
Okay.
And he's going to work for a law firm there. So I will be near your sister from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Manhattan Beach.
Absolutely. She's been out there. She's a California girl because when my parents moved out there in 1988 or 1989, I guess, she was 9, 10. So she basically grew up out there.
Yeah.
She wound up going to USC. She did grad school in Pennsylvania. And she, I think right after grad school, they moved to Manhattan Beach because that's where her in-laws live. And her husband works for Goldman out there.
Park, right? Park.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy Park, yes, Jeremy Park. And Chrissa just started a new job. Chrissa's, I shouldn't say Chris is the bright one in the family because Chris and Julie are both really bright. I'm the dumb one in the family. So Chris has just started a new job with a kind of a VC firm. And she's, office manager is kind of a not exactly what she does because she's kind of the central person there. She does a lot of the hiring. She's, involved in a lot of the decision making. So, she's done very well, and Julie is Julie went with me to college. We both graduated from Notre Dame, and then she did some volunteer work, and she wound up doing a fellowship at shock trauma in Baltimore, and she kind of got her taste for critical care and became an ER doctor. So from what I understand, and Julie will be able to speak to this a lot better, most of the critical care specialists in the country are trauma surgeons or at least surgeons. And Julie was not. Julie was an ER doctor. So she was she was a highly specialized expertise. And she worked at, I think she was, the way I remember her describing it, she was a little ahead of her time. So there weren't many places that would be able to take advantage of her skills and pay her what she deserved given her credentials. And she wound up working in Richmond, Virginia at VCU Hospital for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. She met her husband. They have a six-year-old, I think Evan is, six-year-old named Evan, who's an unbelievably funny kid. And then she got a job offer to move out to Denver. It was probably, it was a year and a half, I guess, because it was about 6 months after my mom passed away. And Julie was in Richmond and my mom and dad were in Williamsburg, Virginia. So they were very close, got to see each other all the time and hang out. And when my mom passed away, we were, Dad, don't make any rash decisions. You don't have to stay here, but, let's give it a little while. And we were thinking like a year, and that when Julie got the job offer, he's like, let's go. So he went out to Colorado as well. And unfortunately, it just wasn't a great setup for him. He's a very social guy, big into golf, and, likes to hang out in the clubhouse and talk with guys and stuff like that. And there really wasn't that type of environment where he was living. And COVID certainly didn't help. So he wound up he got out of his lease and just this past September, moved down to Florida. So he's like right outside of Stewart.
God, you guys are worse than we are, because I've got, I'm going to have one son in California, one son in Washington, and one in Manhattan. You guys are now Florida, California, Denver, and Connecticut. Ouch!
It makes getting together a bit of a pain. Like we try and alternate and do, I'll go with my wife's family one year, and then we'll do a vacation with, Julie and Krista and my dad another year. And it's funny, like, it's just a pain getting anywhere for anybody, like they could all come to Connecticut, but who the hell wants to come to Connecticut, like, so, and nobody wants to go to Florida in the summertime, and, everybody can go to California, but that's a long ass trip for, it's just, it's going to inconvenience somebody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So that's our family.
Yeah. So what town is Julie in?
Julie is in Centennial.
Oh, okay. All right. So my nephew and his wife Jody, they live in Parker, which is right next to Centennial.
Yeah. Okay.
On the other side,
my best friend from Connecticut lives in Parker.
Oh.
Very small world, man. As if this conversation wasn't enough.
My sister lives in Littleton, and my niece lives in Littleton.
Okay.
So, yeah, someday I'm bound to meet Julie one of these days.
I'm sure you will. I'm going to definitely ask her about all this. So, like, obviously, I told you I'm recording, and I'm going to send this to them because I haven't told anybody that we're talking. And Krissa was like, well, I want to jump on the call with you, and I didn't want to overload you with stuff. So you're going to have to tell this story a few times, and maybe, maybe the next time we'll do like a family Zoom with my dad and the girls, and we'll kind of go through everything.
But tell me about your family. You're married.
I am married. I got married September 11th, 1999. My wife is from DC. I met her after college through some mutual friends.
I know all about DC, having gone to American University.
Oh yeah, I mean her whole family is down there. It's, I love it. It's a great spot. It's
Yeah.
very incestuous. I mean, everybody knows everybody. And, you want to talk about like keeping secrets. I don't think that's possible down there. But we have two girls. Anna is a senior in high school now, going through the college thing. We've gotten into two of her safety schools, which is great. We know that she's going somewhere.
Hey, that first acceptance is like, yes.
Actually, ironically, the first acceptance she got was to Salisbury University in Maryland. And my wife's family has a beach house in Bethany Beach, Delaware.
That would be very nice.
So really one of the main reasons she applied there was to be close to her grandmother, so she was more excited than anybody. But yeah, so we're going through that with her right now. And then my other daughter, Casey, is a freshman in high school. So they're both great kids, two very different personalities, but equally as lovable and equally as hateable.
Yeah, that's great. And you're in Stratford?
We are in Stratford, yes.
Now, what got you to Stratford?
So my wife and I got married in '99, and we rented an apartment for a year in Norwalk. And, we both got jobs. She's actually been at GE for 20 years now. But she'd started in 2000 working there. And I was working for a sports marketing agency. We were both making nothing. And we're like, okay, let's look for a house in Wilton. Nope. Let's look for a house in Fairfield. Nope. We just kind of kept going up 95 until it got cheaper and cheaper. And we skipped over Bridgeport. But we wound up finding this great place in Stratford. And you know what? We can't move out of this damn place. It's been 20 years and we're still here. And I say every year for the past 10 years, like, oh my God, we've so outgrown this house, but it's cozy. It's perfect for us. And we like the neighborhood and we've made great friends around here. So, we're happy, my daughter is going to, so Anna's leaving for college next year and Casey goes to, St. Joe's, which is a private school in Trumbull. So at least I am a little bit more open to expanding our search for our next house. We're not married to Stratford necessarily, just because it's not like Casey's would be leaving her friends or anything like that. So who knows? We have the conversation every 6 months and, what about this year? Who knows? Although this would have been the year to do it because houses in our neighborhood, like with everybody moving out from New York City and buying stuff up, we're going like that and at steep prices too. So who knows?
Yeah. And my son in Manhattan is looking at the opposite. His lease isn't up till May, and he's hoping that they're still offering three months free rent when he has to get another lease.
Oh, is that right? Were they doing that?
Yeah, because Manhattan's emptying, as you say.
Yeah.
So tell me about Jennifer.
Oh my God. Jennifer is the wild child of the family.
I assumed.
She is the aunt that, everybody loves and I had the most fun with. She was considerably younger than my mom. So it was almost like she wasn't an aunt, it was almost like she was an older sister. But she moved out to New Mexico not long after my grandparents moved to Sun City. So that would have been early mid 80s. And she's been married a couple times. But she's a great lady. She's a horse trainer out there. She is a true cowgirl. She's been a bartender in a gay bar. She just lives, and she goes day by day. And, I almost wish I could have a little of that attitude that she has. But she's awesome. She's a great lady. I did. So I told you I did talk to her. And she wanted to hear how this conversation went. I did tell her I was going to talk to you. And I think if it's okay with you, I'm going to pass along your contact info to her.
Absolutely.
And she'll reach out to you when she's ready. She was very, she wasn't dismissive or angry or anything like that. She was really in shock. I mean, the number of times we said fuck on that conversation, it was just, it was hilarious. But it's still a shock to her, as it is to,
Of course it is. Yeah.
But she will definitely reach out to you.
Well, especially to her. I mean, we're talking about her father and
right, exactly.
her mother.
And I, I'm not going to speak for her because, I had kind of dropped this on her, so to speak, when we were talking, and I don't think there was anything that could prepare somebody for something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to speak for what her emotions were, or what she was thinking at the time. My impression was that she was shocked, at the same time not surprised.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, or maybe it was understandable.
Yeah,
and not that she ever thought that it had happened, but in thinking about it, maybe she realized that it could have. So but I think she falls more into the absolutely let's bring her in camp than the no way, she's not any part of our family camp. So now I haven't talked to her in a week, and I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to speak for her. I don't know if that's changed.
Hey, and it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. I mean, for all the facts that you've kind of, brought forth, and, it's not that I don't believe you, but there is some resemblance there too, between you and Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and we're going to have to friend on Facebook, but I just posted a picture of me with my goddaughter. My goddaughter turned 50.
Uh-huh.
Yesterday. So I posted a picture of her and her father and me when she was a year old. And I looked at that picture and I said, oh my God, I looked like him in that picture.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a resemblance,
Yeah. And I sure saw it in Marshall, and I see it in my younger son, Kenny, too.
Is that right?
Thomas, not much. He's all Tolbert. My husband's name is Roger Tolbert, and Thomas is all Tolbert.
Is that right?
The other two, you can see some of Joe in them.
So crazy.
Yeah, so I can see Joe in you.
Yeah. So I've seen pictures of Joe when he was younger, and there's a much stronger resemblance. It's funny. Julie and I look probably more alike than Chrissa, and I think it might be as much a coloring. Julie and I were more, brownish blonde-haired kids, and Chrissa is a little bit, she's more brunette, darker hair, and just a little bit different complexion. But we fall probably more into my mother's camp, in terms of how we look. Frederick is definitely more Fred than Mary. Jennifer never had kids. But she, I just love her. She's just the greatest person in the world. So hopefully you guys get
I've been told I have Joe's dimples too.
Joe's face was always wrinkly by the time I got to know him. So,
but that was one thing Patricia noticed right away.
Is that right?
Pat noticed. Yeah,
that's really
cool. He's got a smile.
Really
okay.
So, listen, we might have to do this again.
I would love to.
I'm going to talk with my siblings, and Chris is going to be most angry with me for doing this behind her back. So she's going to want to probably do it like tomorrow or Sunday. And I'll reach out to you with like a time and see. We'll figure out something that works.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Are you guys staying in Arizona for a while?
Yeah, we were hoping to travel to California today, as a matter of fact, and help Kenny move into his new apartment. But my son, the doctor, and my daughter-in-law, the PhD scientist at Pfizer, said, "No, you're not. You're staying right where you are." And we said,
Yeah.
"Okay, okay."
Whatever you guys say.
And so we're here for a while. We will
Okay.
go back to Seattle in probably May, and
Oh,
then
okay.
as far as your siblings go, we're in California at least twice a year for a couple of weeks.
Now, where is your son gonna go?
He's going to be in Alta Loma, so Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario area, 40 miles east
Yeah.
of
Okay.
LA.
LA, right. Okay.
Yeah, so we spent time in Rancho Cucamonga with some good friends there, and in the San Diego area.
Okay.
Um, they have a condo in San Diego. And then, of course, before COVID, I was in Connecticut pretty much every year.
Is that right?
Well, because my oldest son moved to Connecticut. Well, he went to NYU undergrad. So he has been on the East Coast since 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of that, this house that we bought in Marana,
Mm-hmm.
we bought this house before Mary died. So
Wow.
another time where I was this close to Joe.
Unbelievable.
Sun City's, I don't know, 50 miles from here probably.
Is it that close? I thought it was more Phoenix.
It is, but Phoenix is only 90. I think.
Oh,
it's
it
much
is?
less. Yeah, it's.
Oh, I thought
and
it was a north-south thing.
yeah, and well, see, and in Arizona, the speed limit's 75.
Oh, yeah.
So everything's really close.
Yeah. Take me under an hour to get there. Yeah, we went to, I only been to Sun City once, and I was there, Kath, what was it? Oh, we went for Christmas one year. That's right. And Nana and Joe, my grandparents were still alive. They were obviously, in their later years.
Yeah.
But my daughter had just been born. And so she was a baby. So we have pictures of her with Joe, and, he was.
So it was probably when I was here.
Yeah, right. I mean, that would have been, so Anna was born in 2003. So yeah, maybe 2004, 2005, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Crazy. Wow.
Yeah. I've just been circling around your family my whole life, apparently.
Unknowingly, but hey, guess how that stuff works sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I'm glad we got a chance to connect, and
I've loved this conversation. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for being willing to do this.
I'm not going to.
You're my nephew.
I know, right?
Nephew.
Well, I'm not going to speak for my sisters, but I think if you had reached any one of us, we would have all been like, absolutely. Let's. Because I could have easily looked at I have a couple of different email addresses, and I haven't touched ancestry.com in 15 years. And I normally I just go through and delete all the emails that come in on this email address. And all of a sudden it said, you have a new message on Ancestry. I'm like, who the hell is emailing me on ancestry.com? So I'm like, all right, I'll check it, because I barely remember having an Ancestry. And then I saw what you sent, and I was like, what?
Whoa. Well,
So,
I was surprised you got back to me so quickly, because I knew you weren't really, I can tell from looking at Ancestry that you don't do it that often.
It was one of those things. I opened a free account just to play with it 20 years ago, and I was like, oh, I can't do anything else. All right, I'm just going to leave it alone. And seriously, I had never touched it, so it was kind of bizarre. Yeah. But I will reach out to you shortly with an email and just kind of see maybe some dates and times in the next few days that work for you. Because like I said, Julie, Krista, and my dad are all going to have questions.
Yeah.
And I will pass along your info to Jennifer as well. All right. And,
okay, good.
And I'll obviously talk with her, and she'll reach out to you.
tell her 2 years ago, I really was thinking about her.
I'm sure.
And how tough that probably was. And
Yeah.
I didn't know which way to go on it, you
She,
know? And
yeah,
so
I
it's easier
understand.
to just not
I
do anything,
understand.
you know?
She's had it rough, but again, she's a good person. She's really a good
Good.
person. So
All right.
you'll like her.
And
But anyway.
you look like your cousins too, by the way.
Oh, is that right?
Look like, yeah, at least the two younger ones.
They're probably a little skinnier than I
There's hardly anybody in the world who, who's
Once you get to 50,
they're about as skinny as you can get at this point in their lives.
yeah, right. Once you get past the other side of 40, it just kind of all goes downhill. So
Yeah, and Kenny's 27, Marshall's 31, Thomas is 33.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I was
27,
younger
31,
than
33. Okay.
yeah, I was younger than what, 8 years younger than your mom?
Yeah,
7,
around that.
and I had kids late. I got
Yep.
married, we had to do the career back in those days.
Yeah, understand.
All right, Brian, this
All
has
right,
been
Ann. It was great
Thanks so
talking
much.
to you, and we'll talk soon.
all right.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.